Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Society of Food Science and Technology, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, I warmly welcome you all to this online webinar celebrating World Food Safety Day 2026. This year's theme is From Burden to Solutions, Safe Food Everywhere, with the message Safe Food, Better Health, Stronger Nations. It's a reminder to ensure food safety is a shared responsibility from industry to every household. We are delighted to have students, academics, and professionals join us via Zoom today. Please keep your mics muted and drop your questions in the chat. To formally inaugurate today's session, I am honored to invite Ms. Subhanya Ratnayakar to deliver the welcome address.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the organization committee, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our participants, lecturers, and guests who have joined us today. We are delighted to see so many enthusiastic participation gathered for this webinar, and we sincerely appreciate your time and interest in being part of this session. Today's webinar provides a valuable to expand our knowledge and gain insight from the experienced professional in the food industry. We are especially honored to have with us our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Sachith Muthukumarana. Mr. Muthukumarana holds a Bachelor of Science Honours degree in Microbiology from the University of Kelaniya and Masters of Business Management degree from the University of Colombo. He began his Lactalis Lanka Private Limited in the innovation, later moved into the food safety and quality. With over 20 years of experience in the food industry, he has worked extensively in food safety, quality management, nutrition, and workplace health and safety. He currently serves as the Associate Director of Food Safety and Quality, Health, Safety, and Wellbeing and Nutrition at Lactalis Lanka Private Limited. We are privileged to have such an accomplished professional with us today. His expertise and practical experience will unboundedly provide valuable knowledge and inspiration to all participants. With no more delay, Mr. Sachith Muthukumarana. Once again, I warmly welcome all participants and wish you an informative and enjoyable webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Subhanya, for the warm welcome and introduction. Over to you, Mr. Muthukumarana.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Just checking.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can. So, good afternoon to all. So, first of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak the budding food scientists in this country, right? And thank you very much, Dr. Sharmila, who actually one of our good friends, for inviting me for this session. Yeah. So, I think the introduction was enough. You know who I am, right? When I was actually asked by, I think, the president of your association to cover certain topics, actually, I responded saying that some of the topics that you guys wanted me to cover, I don't think that actually I would want to sort of, spend time, because most of those topics you can easily learn from a textbook, or even, I mean, like, these days, you don't even have to sometimes go to the library. You can just, ask from any AI system. They would provide the answers, right? So, but that's why, because without going into those areas, I thought, okay, I'll use this 1 hour to share the experience that I have actually achieved working in many years in the food industry with you guys. So actually, when you go into the industry, you will carry something. You will at least would carry how to think and how to sort of basically how do you set your mindset when you go to the industry. So that's the whole purpose of me speaking to you today. So I think that would meet your expectation. So let me share my screen with you. So can you see my screen? Can you just confirm?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Yes. So today, the topic that I am actually selected is a very simple topic, right? A very basic topic. Nothing technical about it, right? All the things that I'm going to talk about are actually common sense, right? So the question that I want to answer together, not only me, but as a group, why food safety, right? So because actually the reason that we are having this session is because of the food safety, World Food Safety Day that we celebrated on 7th of June, right? So I think it's right time to talk about this topic, why food safety, right? So let's get into that. A very simple topic. I actually want to have a very simple discussion with you guys, and at the same time, if you have any questions and comments, you can always stop me, right? And ask any question or share your comments. Before getting to this very particular topic, right? Let's start very simply. If may I ask, what makes something a food? What would be the answer? We certain substances, we call them food, right? I mean, we consume food from the day that we born and until we die. But what's a food? What makes something a food? Is it the nutrition, right? So I'm sure there are nutrition graduates, nutrition undergraduates in this team. So what makes something a food? Is the answer nutrition? Yes, obviously. Every food stuff would give you some sort of a nutrition value, right? Even a spoonful of sugar would give you carbohydrate. But all of us does not consume food expecting nutrition every time. Am I correct? Right? The best example is this, junk food that we love so much, right? We consume a burger or a Coke or a French fries, not thinking about the nutrition value that it gives, right? So even the product doesn't have a particular nutrition value, we still can call that substance a food. Okay, what about taste? Is it taste? Yes, obviously, food has to be tasty. But taste is very subjective, right? Some food that is tasty for me would not be tasty for you. One example is sashimi, right? I mean, like the Japanese people love sashimi, but would a average Sri Lankan would like to eat or enjoy raw fish? Most probably not, because we are not sort of, uh, uh, used to that sort of a taste. So taste is subjective. So there could be some food product that is not tasty for someone, but it's still a food, right? Or is it safe, right? So being safe, does something make a food, right? So if you really think about it, right, what we were talking is nutritious. Yes, nutrition is there, but even if a particular product is nutritious, we still can call it a food. Same way, if a particular substance is not tasty for some people, still it is a food, right? But if it is not safe, is it a food? No. So the non-negotiable single requirement for something to be food, it has to be safe, right? So that is why in the industry we say, if it is not safe, it is not food. If you want to call something food, it has to be safe, right? So that is why we are talking about this food safety so deeply these days, right? So before again going to deeper discussions, so we sort of understood, okay, food, if in order to call something a food, it has to be safe. Safe is the primary criteria. But what is a safe food? Very simple question, right? Nothing is rocket science here, just common sense. Everyone knows this, right? But what I won't do is actually provoke your thought process, right? So what is a safe food? There are no complex definitions for this, right? A food that does not cause harm to those who consume it is a safe food. So the underlying word here is no harm. So if the food is not causing any harm, we consider that food as a safe food. I hope you agree with me, right? It's that simple. Just think about your own experience, right? Think about every one of us, you, myself, everyone, we are consumers of food, right? So, I mean, nothing is difficult to understand. So, uh, for us, in order to for us to eat something, or if we want to actually give a food to our loved ones, we don't want any harm to happen from that food to us or to our loved ones. So if that particular product doesn't cause any harm, we can safely call that product or the food a safe food, right? Okay, do why do we need the food to be safe? Obviously, the common answer is yes. But if we go a little bit deeper, right, there are very clear statistics to show that food need to be safe. Of course, these statistics you can find anywhere, right? I mean, I hate statistics these days because these sort of statistics, this sort of information, you can find anywhere. Just a click of a button, you can find this. But just to highlight the importance of why food safety is that important, right? These statistics would help you. These are actually quite new statistics from from WHO. So these statistics say, okay, large number of people, like 866 million people, almost 1 in 9 globally, fall sick due to contaminated food. And at the same time, this another statistic says that unsafe food approximately causes 1.52 million deaths annually worldwide. Another statistic say there are more than 200 types of diseases, uh, ranging from diarrhea to cancer, that can cause from food. Another aspect of it is actually the global economic impact, right? Because of the foodborne illnesses, because of unsafe food, almost like US dollars million 300 is lost due to unsafe food. So these statistics are more than enough to understand food need to be safe, right? Food safety is not a joke, right? It's a real burden to the whole world. This is quite obvious. So that is why I think when the WHO and FAO selected the topic for this year's World Food Safety Day, they are specifically talking about it, right? From burden to solution. So it's very clear that food safety, unsafe food is a burden. So we have to find a solution. And the solution would give safe food to everyone, everywhere. So that is why the topic has been selected, and that's a very apt topic for these days, right? So, okay, so we talk of so many incidences, right? I mean, 866 billion people getting sick, 1.52 million deaths, 200 diseases. So, where are these incidences happening? Right? So one might think that, okay, even I mean, even a common person would think, including us, these incidences may be happening, this number, because we have not seen this large number of people dying or getting sick, right? So we might be thinking, okay, this must be happening in some very poor country in India, or very poor country in Africa, or maybe in India, like, consuming unhygienic street foods in India could be, right, and consuming food which is prepared in very unhygienic kitchens, or food which is handled very wrongly, kept outside, open for flies to cockroaches, right? So we might think that all these incidences, all these statistics are coming from these sort of situations. But food safety is much more closer than we think, right? If you really search, right, you can find so many food safety incidences that actually happen in very modern, developed organizations itself, right? Again, you can find this information everywhere, right? Not sort of unique information, but I have given few examples to highlight this. this, right? So this boss head, people who study food, say food science, knows it's a very big meat industry, right? Due to Listeria contamination, these are quite, what I have selected is quite recent incidences, right? In 2004, 2005, 2006. So this particular incident, because of Listeria contamination, there were 10 deaths, right? And because of that, there were plant closure happened. So imagine the impact. Impact is, 10 people getting killed because of this. At the same time, for the business, they have to close their plants. Even McDonald's, right? We all know McDonald's, and McDonald's is supposed to be very food safety wise, very advanced organization, right? But even in that sort of an organization in 2024, there was an E. coli outbreak that caused actually around more than 100 illnesses and one death, right? And loss to the company is huge. And then there is the Prairie Farm, another big organization, right? Due to Listeria outbreak, 12 deaths. And very recently, you may have heard about this cellulite formula recall, right? Which actually one of leading news towards beginning of this year, right? Many organizations went a lot of trouble, including Nestle, right? They had to recall large quantities of infant formula burn around that caused a lot of reputation damage as well as a lot of legal battles, right? So all of these organizations are very big established organizations, multinational organizations, right? And has very developed food safety and quality systems. So these incidences, those statistics that the WHO has shared, is not happening some dirty corner in the world, right? It's happening all over us, right? So it's very important to understand why this happens. When an organization like McDonald's has a very strict food safety and quality systems, why would a E. coli outbreak happen and one consumer die, right? Why an organization like Nestle that has one of the strongest food safety and quality systems still have to undergo billions of recalls, right? So there has to be some problem there, right? There has to be some issue there, right? So in order to identify the solution, what is the solution that actually ensure the food that we produce is safe, it's important to understand what makes a food unsafe, right? So only after understanding the underlying causes you can come up with a solution, right? So I'm again emphasizing the fact that I'm not talking of any highly technical, highly theoretical stuff. I'm just talking of common sense. What I'm trying to do is bring things into a certain model, right? Things that we know here and there, bring into a model and sort of, develop a thought process, right? So that is why actually I am asking these questions and going ahead with my story. So what makes a food unsafe? In order to make a food safe, you need to understand what makes a food unsafe, right? I think every one of you know the answer as food science students, right? Presence of food hazards in food make them unsafe. Very simple, right? So again, this is not rocket science. This is just common sense, right? If there are food hazards in a particular food, that food become unsafe. And food hazards, everyone knows, right? You have your physical hazards, you have your chemical hazards, you have your biological hazards, right? So when a particular food has this hazard, that food is a unsafe food. So are there any other things that can make a food unsafe apart from these hazards? Mind you, actually, since I am on slideshow mode, I can't see any questions or comments. So someone has to sort of, speak up and let me know if there are comments in the chat box, right? So I would keep on continue, right? Because I can't see any chat. So the question that I ask is, okay, we all know about these hazards. Are there any hazard that can actually make a food unsafe, that does not belong into these categories. You can think, right? But no. Some might ask, what about radiation? Right? How would radiation fall? But as we all know, radiation is a result of a chemical, right? So, fortunately, almost all the hazards that can make a food unsafe can be categorized into 3 of these. That is what make our life easy, right? If there are like 1,000 categories, it's very difficult to control. But you only have to think of 3 types of categories: physical hazards, chemical hazards, and biological hazards. So if this hazard is present in the food, that food will become unsafe. So then the question is, okay, how would this hazard, so food is there and hazard is this side, so how would this hazard get into the food, right? How hazards get introduced into the food? We need to understand this aspect also in order to find our ultimate solution, right? Again, very simple, right? Food safety risks introduce hazard to food, right? Nothing else. Food safety risks, those that is the bridge between the food and the hazard. So you have the hazard, you have the food. When there is a risk, food safety risk, this hazard get into the food. So the equation is very simple, right? The risks, food safety risks, introduce food hazards into food that cause illness. So then the solution to make the food safe, what do we have to do? You have to reverse the process, right? You remove the risk, and by removing the risk, hazards will be eliminated, and that will ensure safe food, right? Isn't it simple, right? This is the process that you need to think. You need to understand, okay, the risks are there, you remove the risk, and by eliminating the risk, you actually prevent the possibility of food hazards getting into the food, and thereby making your food safe, right? So it's all about risks. Food safety is all about risks, nothing else. We have to keep on thinking about risks, talking about risks, and managing our risks. That's the solution, right? So food safety is nothing about the risk. It's all about risk. So then if we eliminate the risk, our food will be safe, right? Then the question to do that, you need to understand where these risks are coming from. So these risks introduce hazard to food that make food unsafe. So where are these risks coming from, right? So I'm pretty sure you can think of many examples where certain risks introduce hazard to food. Okay, let's think about something, right? Let's think about a food manufacturing plant. So there are people, right? So we train them, they need to wash their hands when they use the washroom. Guys, give me 1 minute if you don't mind, right? Just 1 minute. Extremely sorry, guys. I got, because I'm actually doing this presentation from the office, so you can imagine that sometimes you get urgent calls. Yeah, can you hear me now? Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So yeah, so what we were talking is just to sort of recap, because before the disturbance, so we were talking of what is a unsafe food, right? And what causes a food unsafe. So having food hazards cause a food to become unsafe, and food hazards are coming through food safety risks. So now we are talking of, okay, what are the sources of food safety risks, right? So actually I was talking of an example that everyone can understand. In a food manufacturing plant, uh, there are people, and people use washrooms. We train the people to make sure that you wash your hand before um, coming out of the top washroom, right? So imagine one person, right, does not do it. I mean, maybe he forgets about it, or maybe he sort of don't understand the importance of it, right? Or he misses to wash the hand. He come to the manufacturing plant, right? And he keeps on manufacturing the food. So the let's say the salmonella, he's a carrier of salmonella, right? So salmonella get into the food contact surface and the food touches, and that food become contaminated with salmonella. So that's one example. Let's imagine another example. So you know that we use different chemicals to clean our food contact surfaces, right? So during one of these cleaning processes, the chemicals that we use to clean, they would not get washed enough. So chemical residues will be there, and when the food is getting touched on the food contact surface, these cleaning chemicals get into the food. There's a chemical contamination, chemical hazard. Or again, imagine there are in a machine, right? Uh, let's say there is a valve, right? And this valve, due to some technical issue, get broken, right? And pieces of this valve get into the food. A physical hazard been identified or introduced through the food. So, what is the common characteristic of all these risks? The common characteristic is none of these risks are introduced intentionally, right? Did the employee in this particular example intentionally introduce salmonella? No. He missed washing the hand. He didn't understand it. It came. Same way the machine, the valve in the machine, it got broken. No one did that. So it's unintentional. So one source of food safety risk is unintentional. No one is intended to introduce that risk to the food. Clear? Right? But is that all? Up until very recently, we only considered this. All food industries considered this, right? Unintentional risk. But then, with the world moving, right? You can call it a development, but with the development, a lot of bad things happen. Then we understood not only unintentionally, intentionally also, there could be food safety risks introduced into food, right? So someone knowingly do this. Why would someone do this? Why would another human being intentionally introduce a food safety risk to a food? There are two reasons, right? Of course, most of you should know this, right? One reason is due to financial gains, right? You substitute something with a cheaper ingredient, right? So you get a financial gain. There's another reason which we call the ideological reasons. That's because of belief. So maybe like a terrorist organization want to harm people, they take, I don't know, cyanide cylinders and go to a supermarket and inject cyanide into baby formula. Oh, we don't have to go up to that level. A disgruntled employee, maybe have a fight with, maybe the manager scold him, right, and he get very angry, and he put something into food, right, because of his anger, right? Maybe he get fired due to something that he did, and before he leaves, he won't do some harm. He takes a chemical from somewhere, put into the product. So this is not for a financial gain, but because of the thinking, the ideological reason. So now you can understand the food safety risks are coming from different ways, right? Unintentionally as well as intentionally, due to financial gains or ideological reasons, right? So after understanding this, so we know that risks, again going in back to our story, risks introduce hazard cause food to be harmful. So we know the risks, all those risks, the source of risk. So if solution is control these risks, right? If we can control the risk, we can give the solution for food safety. So how to control risk? Okay, now I'm going to talk of something that you guys you are very interested in and prefer to talk about, right? So that is our famous HACCP. So HACCP is there to control the risk. Am I correct? Right. So it's the basic, and like as undergraduates, that's the most sort of loved system in food safety, HACCP, right? So yes, HACCP is there to control risk, right? Before going into that, right, what does HACCP means? Everyone should know if you have studied, right? So can anyone unmute their mics and let me know the correct answer for this?
Answer B, sir. Second one.
Second one. Okay. Yes. So simple, right? HACCP is hazard analysis critical control points, right? Everyone knows about it. Everyone knows, right? So I'm not going to teach you how to do HACCP plan. And I'm not going to teach you, what is the history of HACCP, how to do HACCP plan, because you can, any textbook or any, as I said, any Google search or any ChatGPT question would tell you this, right? But just to sort of, without talking HACCP, since we sort of cannot go forward, I will just give you a very practical way to understand HACCP, not a very technical, but a very practical way, right? So what's the ultimate goal of HACCP, if I may ask, right? It's very simple. It's about identifying the hazards. You rate the hazards, you remove the hazards, and you prevent reintroduction of hazards, right? All these 7 steps to decision trees to everything, that is what you do, right? You map your process, you identify the process, or you can see, right? You map the end-to-end process, you identify the risks, then you assess the risk and rate the risk, and then you identify mitigation actions, then you close all the actions, right? And after that, you have to protect the product so that whatever the risk that you removed would not get reintroduced. And at the same time, you have to verify the risk is managed. So this is what you do in a HACCP plan. So there are 3 key elements. So everyone knows this, right? CCPs, OPRPs, PRPs, right? It's critical control points, operational prerequisite programs, and prerequisite programs, right? So these are the 3 components. These are I would call them the out after going through all that, the 7 steps to decision trees to everything. The outcome is you will end up with a list of, or a set of CCPs, a set of OPRPs, and set of PRPs, right? So we all know CCPs. You have to go through the decision tree and everything, but in a very simple way, CCPs are like the most critical steps in your manufacturing process that controls a critical food safety risk that would introduce a particular hazard. Could be a chemical, could be a physical, could be a microbiology, right? And another aspect of it is actually a CCP prevents a contaminated product going forward, right? Think of your pasteurization. So pasteurization is a critical step in any dairy dairy company. That heat treatment, the time temperature combination would prevent pathogens going forward, right? So that's the critical, or that would be like the signature aspect of CCP. It prevents the contaminated product going forward. OPRPs are still quite significant, may not as critical as CCPs, but still quite significant to prevent certain food safety risks. But those steps wouldn't normally prevent the product from going forward, right? So simply put, if I take an example, let's say in a milk powder industry, So foreign matter control, we have X-ray systems, right? So X-ray system, what it does is, it detects a foreign matter and rejects that back. So that's a CCP, right? That's the last step to prevent physical hazard, and that actually removes the physical hazard, the contaminated product from the system. But at the same time, we have sifters, right? So we have sifters to sort of the milk powder go through the sifter. It's a fine mesh, and then go to the X-ray. That sifter is not a CCP, it's a OPRP. Why? It is still critical, but it's not the last step to begin with, because the last step is now the X-ray. Secondly, it just removes the foreign matter. It doesn't prevent that contaminated product going forward. So it sort of, screen the foreign matter and remain while the product flows. So that's a classic example for OPRP, right? So PRP, and the other thing is CCP, OPRPs are actually part of the manufacturing process. It is part of the manufacturing process. Whereas PRPs are not part of the manufacturing process. They are outside the manufacturing process, right? So the purpose of PRP is, simply put, keep the outside out and inside clean. So if someone asks what does a PRP would do, prerequisite program do, it does what it does is, it keeps the outside, it doesn't allow it come to inside, and the inside clean. So all your building design to hygiene zoning of your manufacturing plant, machinery design, environmental control, pathogen prevention, pathogen detection, cleaning, sanitization, pest management, you name it, all are PRP programs, right? So this is HACCP. We at this step we said, okay, HACCP helps to prevent risk, right? So now the question that I'm going to ask is, what sort of risk does HACCP manage? We talked of many types of risks, right? We talked of unintentional risks, intentional risks. What sort of risk HACCP manage? Only the unintentional risk. Imagine, just think about it, right? Only unintentional risks are managed by HACCP. You can't manage intentional risks through HACCP. So you can think of examples. You try to imagine a risk that is managed through HACCP, which is not unintentional. No, everything is unintentional. Is this enough? We know the answer, no, because there is this large component of intentional risks also happening due to financial gains, due to illogical reasons. So then we have to have control mechanisms for these also. So for risks, that is intentional risk happening due to financial gains, right? You need to ensure that your processes are not vulnerable for these fraudulent activities, right? In order to do that, you have to, similar to HACCP, you have to do your vulnerability assessment. So we call them VACCP, right? Then for this, the intentional risk coming from ideological reasons, these are threats, right? Someone is threatening your food. So you have to assess your threats, threat assessment critical control points. So you have to have your TACCPs ready. So you see the HACCP is just very important, yet part of your food safety management systems. You have to have your VACCP, you have your TACCP, right? So I have given you two very common examples, right? VACCP, basically you add something to give a value that the food doesn't have, right? And this strawberry and needle example, which happened in Australia, you can just search, right? Which is very common, I think, in textbooks also. You can find this, right? A disconnected employee, how he sort of inserted needles into strawberries, right? So food safety management system is like an umbrella, right? So you have to have HACCP, you have to have your food defense part, that is through TACCP, you have to have your food fraud part through VACCP, right? Then only you can actually think of a total end-to-end food management system. Okay, so is that the solution? So now we have been talking of the solution to a burden, right? So now we are coming towards the solution. But having this umbrella, right? Do we have the solution? Do we have that magic solution to make the burden of food safety into a solution, right? So all these things that we talked about, right? Your HACCP, VACCP, TACCP, CCPs, OPRPs, SOPs, procedures, practices. Yes, those are needed, right? Those are at the core of our solution. But if we let individual components of an organization to run this as they want, it's not going to work. The reason is food safety has to be consistent, right? So that's the most important thing. Remember, food safety for everyone, everywhere, and another word to add is every time. So food safety is for everyone, everywhere, every time. So in order to ensure that consistency, you can't have ad hoc systems here and there. So that is why you need to bring all these things into a system, right? So that is why you have your FSSC 20,000, BRCGS, or like if you go to a little bit of a preliminary system like ISO 20,000, you have these systems to systematize all these things together. So what are the essentials of a quality system, right? Could be a food safety system, right? What are the essentials? We all know that there are actually, in order to how a system would bring a particular methodology out of chaos is by doing this, right? You understand what the needs are, then you say what you do, then you do what you say, then you record what you do, right? And you review what you have done, then you take actions if some things have gone wrong, and you keep on doing this process. So that's, in a nutshell, that's a system. So when you bring this system, you can bring a method to this madness, right? But the problem is, remember all those examples that we talk of, right? From Nestle's to McDonald's to all these organizations that faced major food safety and quality issues had very developed systems. They had all these processors, they had very developed systems, but they yet faced major issues, right? Major issues that threatened their existence. So what caused that? That comes to the most important. So that the reason is systems can fail, right? If people don't understand why food safety is, if people don't understand what is expected from them, if people are not capable of doing what they are supposed to do, right? If the leadership commitment is not there, leaders would say, okay, I want food safety and quality, but when it comes to the real decisions, they don't give that commitment. Oh, maybe the organization is not investing on right people, right? Not investing on right resources. So that is why you have to have the people component for this ultimate solution. Because at the end of the day, people are the ones who would implement the systems and thereby ensure these processes are practiced, right? But people are, you and I, are very unique creatures, right? Because we as human beings want to do the easy thing, right? Obviously, I mean, we are wired to do the easy thing. We are wired to take the easy way out, right? Because we don't want to put that much of effort. I mean, that's given and not given. Given the option, every one of us choose the easy way, right? But sometimes to implement these processes, implement these practices, you have to put effort. One way to do this is by bringing a lot of regulations, rules and regulations. You can put a lot of rules in the organization. Yeah, it would work until someone is watching you, right? So someone is watching, a supervisor is watching, a manager is watching, the rules would work. But what about 2 a.m. in the morning, in the night shift, right? The plant runs at 2 a.m. in the morning, no one is watching. What makes people do the right thing, right? That's where the culture comes into play. The organizational culture comes into play, right? That is your ultimate solution that actually ensures food safety and quality. So, in a nutshell, you have to have your processes, you have to put them into a system, then you have to have the people component. But in order to make the people to do the right thing, you have to have the right culture, right? So I think I'm clear up to this level, right? So you have to make food safety part of the organizational culture, right? So what's the culture? I mean, if I ask what's the culture, most of you should be able to answer, because there are so many definitions out there, right? But the way that I would like to explain culture is, right, it's the underlying beliefs and values of an organization, which is governed by the collective thinking, which guides the behavior and actions of all the members of organization. So there are four components here, right? So it's that set of underlying beliefs and values, the way you think, but it's the collective thinking, not like individualistic thinking, collective thinking. And that collective thinking is what guide the behaviors and actions of not one individual or few individuals, but all the individuals in the organization. So this is the culture, right? So in other words, it's a state of mind, right? Or it's a way of life. Simply put, it's a way things we do around here. Right? So it's the way that things are done around here. So this is the culture. So if you can actually embed food safety and quality into this, into the state of mind of the people in the organization, into the way of life of the people in the organization, and into the way the things are done around here, nothing can go wrong, right? That's why food safety and quality has to be part of the organization. So if we ask this question, why food safety and quality need to be part of the organization culture, right? It starts from what we want to achieve. What we want to achieve is uncompromised food safety at every time. Remember, food safety. Did I lose you?
We can hear you, but the screen was
Yeah.
okay. We can
So
see.
I think it has come, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So what we want to achieve is uncompromised food safety at every time. Remember, food safety everywhere, for everyone, at every time. You can't achieve this by one individual or one department of an organization cannot achieve this expectation, because this is consistent every time, everywhere, right? So every individual in the value chain or the organization need to take the accountability of food safety and quality, right? And that is why food safety and quality has to be embedded into the organizational culture, right? It has to be part of the mindset. It has to be part of the way of life, right? Then only all the things that we talk can be achieved, right? So starting from your processors like your HACCPs, VACCPs, TACCPs, then you have to have your systems, then you have to have the right people, and then you have to embed that food safety and quality into the organization culture, right? So how to create the FSU culture, right? That is, I can say, the most difficult thing that any food safety professional has to face in his career, right? There are different ways to achieve this. I mean, there are different models out there, right? I'm just showing you one example of a model which is developed by Frank Yanas, right? So this is just a single model. These models are just models as long as we don't understand the real human psychology and real human behavior and do something about it, right? But these models would sort of, help us to sort of, structure ourselves to achieve what we want, right? So in this particular model, if we just go through this particular model, right? I'm not going to talk too much about it. Again, you can find this anywhere. But it talks of few aspects, which is very relevant, right? So it talks of the expectation. People need to know what is expected from them, right? And it talks of values and leadership. The leaders need to role model the right behavior, right? And it talks of communication. That is, you have to keep on talking about food safety and quality, right? You have every option or every possibility, every opportunity that you get, you need to talk of food safety and quality. You need to have right capability, and you have to keep on developing people, right? Then you have to make people accountable. And last part is also important: reinforcement and consequences. Without consequences, you can't achieve a lot. So this is one way. You do this, you understand this, you implement this, one way to achieve that FSU culture that we want, right? So with that, now I have been talking very simple stuff, right? But if we put everything together, right? So how to bring food safety and quality into the practice is what we have been talking, the solution, right? From burden to solution. So let's sort of, put everything together, right? Okay. Most important thing, embedding food safety into the culture. We have to think, act, and live food safety and quality. And everyone in the organization need to believe food safety and quality is important, right? It's my responsibility. Everyone need to understand what's my role in food safety and quality. So that everything has to start from there, embedding food safety into the culture. Then you implement your systems, right? Could be ISO 20000, simple one. So you can go for FSC 20000, BRCGS. That would help to sort of systematize everything, right? We didn't talk about this too much, but it's quite common sense again, right? So food, in order to make food, you need to have material. You need to have your ingredients, you need to have your raw material, you need to have your packing material, right? So if you want to make a good or a safe food, you have to use safe incoming material. We didn't talk about it too much, but this is common sense, right? We all know garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage, you are going to get result in garbage. If you want to get good safe food, you need to put good safe material. So you have to, and most of this ingredient, most of this incoming material, you are not producing by yourself. You are getting it from somewhere. So you have to have a system to ensure that those people are trusted, maybe through audits. You have to have a set of trusted vendors to buy this or get this incoming material. So the material line, so you have a culture, you have a system, material line, now you have to manufacture, right? So use your HACCP, TACCP, VACCP programs to manufacture a good product. Now you have produced a good product, then you have to ensure that post-manufacturing, the product is still going to be safe. So during our storage, during our transportation, distribution, during at the trade, even trade, right? So no one can say, okay, my product is now out of my gate, I can't be responsible. No, even in the trade, you are still responsible. And at the consumer end even, right? If you have not taught the consumer how to store this product, how to consume this product, it's our fault. So you have to ensure that after manufacturing, post-manufacturing, up until the consumer, your product is safe, right? So this, if you can implement this system, right, starting from the culture, then have your systems and have your right incoming material, raw material to packing material, have the right systems, and then you control post-production up until the consumer, you can do this. You can achieve safe food. But there are three things that can go wrong. Oh, I would say which would not happen as planned. That's also something that you need to take care of. So there are non-standard processes. If you ask me, right, almost all the food safety incidences happen due to a non-standard process. What is a non-standard process? So you have SOP, right? So as long as you do follow the SOP, your food is safe. But there could be situations that you can't follow the SOP. For example, suddenly a machine breaks down, right? Or suddenly something goes wrong. For example, okay, I was telling about an X-ray machine, right? We have. So suddenly you can't use X-ray machine, right? Can happen. So then but you can't stop your manufacturing. Then you have to come up with a process. But that new process is a non-standard process, right? So you have to manage this non-standard process. So again, you have to do the risk assessment, identify the risks of this non-standard process. And if there are risks, you have to come up with mitigation actions. You have to implement it. So managing non-standard process is super important as an addition to this step. Another aspect is managing non-conformances, right? Things can go wrong. For example, how much you clean your manufacturing plant, one bad day you find a pathogen in your environmental samples, right? So there is a non-conformance has happened. So then you have to manage your non-conformance. That is another place where most people go wrong. They get to know about a non-conformance, but they don't manage it. They let it happen. They let it pass, right? So the second aspect of it is managing non-conformances. The last part is the change, right? There are going to be changes, obviously, right? Because in order to improve the efficiency of the systems, the effectiveness of the systems, and due to different environmental in the sense outside the organization, different factors, you have to change your ways, right? And these changes is obviously introduce food safety risks. So does that mean that we shouldn't do changes? No, obviously you have to do changes, right? Without change, you can't survive. But again, you have to take that change into consideration and manage the change. Same way, you have to identify what are the risks associated with that change. You have to come up with mitigation actions. You have to implement it. You have to get the right approvals and implement the change. So you manage the risk of that change, right? So as I was saying, right, the solution is here, right? Of course, it is much easier said than done. But if you think in this manner, right, starting with the right culture, then you have to have the right systems, then you get the right material in, you manufacture the process as per the right process, then after manufacturing, you manage your post-manufacturing process, then you manage your non-standard processes, and then you manage your non-conformances, and you manage your change. We can achieve the safety of the food that we are expected to achieve. Okay, so I think it's a good time to end our discussion, right? Now we can actually go into questions if you have. But while the questions are coming, I have put a slide. This is actually it's made. It's a collage of posters that we made for this World Food Safety Day, right? While you keep on reading, I am more than happy to answer questions that anyone would be having.
Sir,
Yes.
why is it sometimes difficult to distinguish between OPRP and the CCP?
Yes, it's actually quite, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but you have to think about it. So if you can remember, one thing that I told you was think whether that particular step prevents the contaminated product going forward, right? So use that sifter and the X-ray as the example, right? So both in our process. So people who may have seen at least, I mean, we only have X-rays in Sri Lanka, but you see, you put the powder, you pass the powder through a sifter, that a fine mesh, then it get packed and it goes to X-ray, right? So X-ray is our CCP, sifter is our OPRP. So what's the difference, right? So CCP, first of all, it's a last step to prevent the physical hazard. Secondly, it removes the contaminated product. So if the X-ray machine detects a foreign matter in a product or a pack, let's say a anchor pack, it removes that pack. It removes the product. Whereas the sifter, it prevents it prevents the risk, but the product goes through, right? On the sifter, the product doesn't remain. Contaminated product, it goes through, but the contamination could be remaining. So the main point to differentiate a CCP and OPRP is thinking whether that particular step, first of all, is that the last step? Secondly, is that step remove the contaminated product or the contamination from the process? Is it clear a little bit? You actually have to think of a lot of examples to understand this difference. But these two examples that I have given, the sifter and the X-ray, sifter being OPRP and X-ray being the CCP, would sort of help you to, I think, understand the difference between these two. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you explain a bit how can small and medium-sized food business improve food safety with limited resources? If they are having limited resources like less instruments, how can they do that?
Actually, food safety is not an expensive thing to do, right? So smaller the organization, easier to achieve food safety. First of all, your processes are simple, right? And then because you see, when the organization becomes big, the risks are become larger, right? So basically, having a HACCP, is it expensive? No, right? Doing the right HACCP plan, identifying the risk, right? It's not expensive at all. Then go understanding the vulnerabilities of your process, understand the threats of your process, and taking mitigation actions. None of these are expensive, right? And the most important thing is the people mindset, right? So that culture, or when the organization is big, having the culture is very difficult, because instead of dealing with 20 people, now you have to deal with 2,000 people, right? So when the organization is smaller, actually your problem is much lesser, right? You can actually develop a good culture because it's a small group of people, right? Then you, of course, think of the risks, right? Your HACCPs, those are, I mean, even not going for a system certification, you don't have to. Sometimes if the organization is so small, you may not even need to go for the certification, right? But doing that HACCP, hazard analysis critical control point, identifying the risks and putting controls, right? At the end of the day, you will ensure your food is safe. You may not have all your certifications, but certifications are the next step, right? But having that system, having that understanding, having the right people, and then giving that right mindset to people, always communicating food safety and quality, talking to these people, talking to them why food safety is important, right? Then you can achieve the same level of food safety. A bigger organization could be having difficulty in this. So never think that to achieve food safety, the organization has to be big. I know from my experience, if the organization is smaller, achieving food safety is much easier than a bigger organization, because it's nothing to do with the resource, it's nothing to do with the money. It's about that mindset.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Sir,
Yes.
according to the current situation, what is the largest food safety issue prevailing in Sri Lanka at the moment, right now, sir?
Okay, so one thing that I can think is, right, so because of the I mean, from my experience, because of the high fuel prices and high electricity prices, right, most of these trade tend to sort of, not managing their cold chain the way that it's supposed to manage, right? So because you can understand electricity is quite expensive these days, right? And when there are power cuts, if you want to run a generator, you have to spend fuel. So in most of the places, the whole chain, the whole chain is not good, and because of that, actually, that causes a lot of, especially in meat and dairy sector, lot of food safety issues you can sort of focus. Secondly, of course, I think if you go check, you find this meningitis and all those things. That's sort of, yes, an issue, right? But people, the this sort of, because of malpractices in cold chain, the harm is much bigger than something like meningitis, right? So because we actually, I think sometimes the reason that you ask me this question could be this lot of how happening on meningitis, but yes, it's out there, right? Some of these kids are actually getting sick. That's quite sad. Uh, but again, if you sort of, it's easier to sort of, manage, right? I mean, like, you have your food as much as possible at house, and like, if you eat only from trusted sources, and you keep your hands clean, you drink only water which is sort of, so you can manage those sort of very specific food safety incidences. But national wide, one of the biggest issues that I see is because of this current economic issue, people not following the cold chain facility, cold chain integrity.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, what future food safety skills should food science student develop to remain competitive in food industry?
Okay. So that's a quite an interesting question. So I think most of the technical things that you would learn, right? Of course, I also learned them, right? You have to learn them as part of your undergraduate program. Obviously, you can't avoid that. But the most important thing, right, that young food science, right? This It's actually going beyond that technical knowledge these days, because technical knowledge can be easily accessible these days, right? But that right thinking is the most difficult and most important thing that a young graduate need to understand, right? So yeah, so bring that right attitude, bring that thinking, be open to this new information, new what's happening out there, right? And new ways of working, that would really help you.
Thank you, sir.
Right. If there are no other questions, we can, I think, close this. Dr. Sharmila.
Um, yes, Sachit, thank you very much. I think the students would want to talk a bit as a wrap up of the
Sure.
program. And thank you very much. I really appreciate um, for accepting our invitation. Thanks a lot. It was very insightful. I'm sure the students could have gained a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sharmila.
Sachin, sir, I think you can complete the session, please.
Okay, madam.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muthukumarana, for the insightful session. Your perspective on turning food safety challenges into solutions was truly valuable. As we come to the end of today's webinar, I now invite Mr. Vihanga Vijayasinghe to propose the vote of thanks. Mr. Vihanga, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. As we come to the end of the today webinar, I would like to express for sincere gratitude to the everyone who contribute to its successful. First, our heartfelt thanks for our extremely great speaker, Mr. Sachith Muthukumarana, for sharing his valuable knowledge and the insight. Your contribution is made this session both informative and inspiring. We would also like to sincerely thank Dr. Sharmila Jaitilak for coordinating for our great guest speaker for helping make this event possible. Our special appreciation goes to the Dr. R.A.C.H. Senaviratna, Senior Treasurer, and Professor Prasanna Gunatilaka, Head of the Department, for the guidance for support provided throughout the organization this webinar. We also thank all the participants for joining us and actively engaging in this session. You delighted in made in the event too meaningfully. And finally, our gratitude goes to the organization committee and everyone who work in the behind the scenes and ensure the smooth running and this webinar. Thank you all the making an event successful. We hope to see you again and our future events. And thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vihanga, for those kind words. With that, we conclude our World Food Safety Day 2026 webinar. Thank you once again to Mr. Sachith Muthukumarana, Ms. Subhanya Ratnayaka, Mr. Vihanga Vijayasinghe, our faculty advisors, organizing team, and all participants. So let's carry forward today's message and contribute to safer food, better health, and stronger nations. Thank you very much.